Imperial College of Science, Technology and Medicine is known throughout the world. Its reputation assured by an illustrious past. But behind the reputation, what's going on now? Are the traditions of the past still being vigorously pursued in the present? Here are some snapshots of some of the work in progress.
We're working on this molecule called azadirachtin, which is actually isolated from the Indian neem tree. What it does is to stop insect species from feeding, and obviously if we can do this, then we have a potential of a way of slowing down the intake of food, and therefore these caterpillars and the various insects cannot develop properly. And so this becomes a slow-acting insecticide, a sort of slimming pill, if you like, for insects. The very nice thing about this molecule is that it doesn't have a problem by being toxic to pollinating species, such as bees, for example, and therefore we're able to target it directly at the pest insects that we're trying to eradicate from an area. And it also doesn't have any effect if it was to wash off into rivers, and so that it wouldn't have any properties and problems about killing fish or any other species. It's a very non-toxic to mammalian systems, but extremely toxic towards the caterpillar species themselves. Very environmentally friendly compound.
That means that we're concerned with understanding the creation, development and management of new ventures. New ventures means the individual who's working in his shed at the end of the garden, right the way through to the entrepreneurs who create the billion-pound businesses of the future. Management School at Imperial College is the only management school that focuses upon new ventures, innovation and technology within their programs. What's interesting about the student body who particularly choose innovation and new ventures is that they come from very wide base. They come from all over the world. Students from developing countries and developed countries are interested in the issue of creating new ventures. They also come from all sorts of different sorts of organizations, so that we spend quite a lot of time looking at the creation of new ventures within public sector, within organizations that are run, for example, by government.
The aim of this project is to understand the formation and properties of semiconductor materials at the atomic level, so that we can plan the next potential generation of semiconductor and optoelectronic devices. The interest in this subject is worldwide, and we're receiving a good deal of support from overseas countries, particularly Japan, to enable us to carry out these fundamental studies. In this project, which this machine is part, we're concerned with producing semiconductor layers whose dimensions come down to that of atomic distances in solids. So we lay them down atomic layer by atomic layer. In this laboratory, we have one of the instruments which we use to measure their properties. We're particularly here concerned with their optical properties, and we shoot laser light onto them and measure how that laser light is absorbed or reflected from them. From these measurements, we're able to calculate the electronic structures of the materials we've grown in the machinery which I've just been showing you. The Semiconductor Materials IRC was set up 3 years ago to bring together people from chemistry, physics, material science and electrical engineering so that we could create interdisciplinary teams that would enable us to study a wide range of topics in semiconductors.
Camel power is obviously very important in desert areas. It's an animal which is able to work in areas that other animals would succumb in because of the heat and the dryness. The problem with dehydration is that when you lose water, you can't keep your body temperature constant very easily, but it's important to keep your brain temperature constant. And the way the camel keeps its brain temperature at a reasonable level, despite a high body temperature, is to cool the brain, cool the blood going to the brain, through respiration. But this has a penalty, because it's the breathing then which is being used for cooling the blood to the brain, rather than ventilation which goes to providing power output. The idea of the best efficiency, if you like, is not our ultimate goal. But by knowing what improvements can be achieved, then you can allow local people to modify local custom, if they wish, to gain better use from their animals.
The most important route of transmission of hepatitis B is from mother to infant, and at the present time we try to vaccinate the children against infection from their mother with the current vaccines. But in some studies that were conducted with Professor Zanetti and his colleagues in the Milan area in Italy, we found about 3.5% of vaccinated children still developed infection, and some of these went on to a chronic disease process. So we started to look at the sequence of the virus using techniques such as the one shown here, where we do the nucleotide sequence of the virus from the mother and then from the child, and we found one particular nucleotide difference in the child compared to the mother, and this is a change which alters the protein structure of the virus so that it can avoid being neutralized by the current vaccines. We then were able to make a new protein with this mutation within it, and that mutant vaccine will be incorporated along with the original vaccine, and we hope then that the two together will not only prevent the most common variant of the virus infecting the child, but also this escape mutant as well.
Small batches are extremely important these days because nobody likes to hold high stocks of finished products, because that essentially is money being stored which is doing nothing. So the tendency these days is to manufacture to order. Now the cell behind me is a complete flexible assembly cell consisting of a robot and ancillaries. And the idea is to take information in from a computer-aided design system on the design of a printed circuit board layout, and then the computer which controls this cell will take this information in and almost automatically program up the robot and all the ancillaries to perform the task. And this type of system has such a low setup time that it is very, very quick to actually set the equipment up to assemble a product.
Well, we've been interested for many years in any photochemical processes, that is, processes which are chemical processes initiated by light, which go very fast. Our particular interest now is in the most important photochemical reaction of all. In fact, the most important chemical reaction, I suppose, and that is photosynthesis. If we know in detail how the reaction center of photosynthesis works, we may be able, by modern techniques of genetic engineering, to alter it, improve it, increase its yield, and even produce other kinds of plants. One thinks of designer oilseeds planned through genetic engineering and so on, which have a higher yield and are probably in more suitable plants, in berries which are easier to harvest and so forth. This is dreaming a little, as I say, but I don't think it's entirely science fiction. I think it will come.
A distinguished Nobel Prize laureate, Lord Porter was for 5 years the President of the Royal Society, which was founded by Charles II to honour excellence. 50 other members of the Imperial College staff have also been elected Fellows of the Society. Nobel laureates bring excitement to the labs. None is more dedicated than Sir Geoffrey Wilkinson. Until recently head of the chemistry department, he's now actively involved in full-time research with a new young team, handpicked from all over the world. With such a distinguished staff, it's entirely fitting that in a recent poll of European academics, the French magazine Libération placed Imperial College first among European universities for engineering. With so much work going on at the cutting edge of research, what's it like as a place to be a student? There are 6,525 full-time students, 2,111 postgraduates, 201 postdoc research assistants, and 22% of all students come from overseas.
As far as IC goes, it's just because it's number one as far as technology goes in the whole of UK, so I've come to IC.
Originally also, I had heard earlier that Imperial College is one of the best institutions in England as far as technology is concerned. So it was, when I got this opportunity to do a PhD, I naturally gave Imperial as my first choice.
It's a very democratic atmosphere here, and you mix with quite a number of, let's say, students from different areas. So it's the general exposure.
I could attend a lot of lectures by professors that you only read about if you're in India. And here, like, I listen to people like the head of the MIT's information lab talking to us, and people coming from all over the world and talking to us, which got my interest going, and that's what makes you feel good of being in the hot seat of technology.
And it also gives us a chance to look at new things that are happening in research today, rather than just stuff that's been happening over the, say 10 or 15 years ago.
So I think the best way is to actually look at this expression for G as a function of R and then treat it as an ordinary problem in differentiation.
I don't know if there's a better way of doing it.
No, that's the right way to do it. Well, the most important way in which we support the students' learning is through the tutorial system. This is in contrast to what you might find in universities in some other countries, where students will not get very much contact with the professors at all. They will see them in lectures, and they might see them in teaching labs, but they won't have much opportunity to really interact with them in a small group and to really get the benefit of talking as individuals to people who are really experienced in the field.
One of the biggest problems of coming to London is the financial problem. It's a very expensive place to live in.
Practical problem, the main problem in London, the accommodation. I think the accommodation is too expensive. It's much more than I predicted.
Anything to solve the accommodation problem would definitely be a good idea, especially for, let's say, a married couple or married couple with children.
When I go back to Nigeria, my intention is to sort of practice as a structural designer
I'm a woman who's studied abroad. If I come back with the degrees I want to have, like say if hopefully if I can go as far as a PhD, I can go back, show other women that it can be done, it has been done.
We're coming up to age, as you can say, so people like me who have got a degree from Imperial, I'm sure will be able to find a very good job there. And that is what I want to do, go back to my country and help this process of development.
And finally, what does the man at the top, Rector Sir Eric Ashe, want for the future of Imperial College?
You will have seen just a little bit of Imperial College in the last few minutes, some of the exciting research on which we are engaged. We have very talented, creative, world-class scientists and engineers who are doing this work, and they are of enormous importance to the college. They are the college. But they're only half the story. The other half is, of course, having talented students. And indeed, the two are linked because the thing that attracts really talented academic staff to Imperial College is the very fact that we also have very talented students. Where do they come from? Well, the answer is from all over the world. Something like 25% of all of our students are from outside the UK, and we regard this as a great enrichment for the whole community. There is, of course, a problem, particularly from some countries, particularly those where the rates of exchange have turned against them, a problem for those students to find the means of paying the high fees that we're forced to charge at Imperial College and study with us. We are very keen on trying to do something about it, trying to find means of getting scholarships and other means of support for those who really need it. Because having the most talented students in the world to work with us is our primary need. We have very difficult problems to solve, we have challenging and exhilarating research to do, and we need all the talent we can get.